If you're thinking about buying a house in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina in 2026, there's one thing that most buyers are getting completely wrong about this market. At the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's happening in the Mount Pleasant market right now as of 2026 so that you can make the most educated decision on whether buying or selling this year in Mount Pleasant is right for you. A lot of buyers think prices are about to drop hard. Inventory is going to skyrocket and deals are going to be had left and right on the buy side of the transaction. That's not exactly what we're seeing here as real estate agents in the town of Mount Pleasant right now. I'm Kyle Weston, and I help buyers and sellers every single day around Charleston County. And here's what you need to know as 2026 really gets underway. How about we start with talking about our inventory? Yes, inventory is higher now in 2026 than it was during the post-COVID frenzy of 2021 and 2022. But just because a new listing hits the market doesn't mean you're going to have a motivated seller. And it definitely doesn't mean that you're going to get an awesome, huge, amazing deal the moment that it hits the market. In fact, pretty much the opposite. Homes that are priced properly here in Mount Pleasant sell within the week, sometimes over the weekend if it's a really good one. So if you see a house that you like, you're going to have to be prepared to make a really strong offer to earn that business from the seller side of the transaction. Don't wait. Item number 2, pricing. Pricing in Mount Pleasant stays high. It's a desirable place to live, which I've covered in several other videos. But just because prices seem to be going down doesn't mean there's a market crash inbound. In fact, prices are just normalizing, getting back to what they were during or even before the frenzy of 2021 and 2022. And strong, desirable neighborhoods are still holding sellers' interest in very high regard. There's parts of Mount Pleasant that aren't in those most desirable subdivisions. They're still garnering top, very high prices. Over $900,000 was our average in 2025, and you can expect much of the same in 2026, if not a little higher. Okay, the third thing that I want to talk to you about today is interest rates. Everybody hears about interest rates swirling around on the news, on Facebook, Instagram, all over the place. But what really does that have to do with you getting a good deal or not? Well, when interest rates were crazy low, 2%, 3% a couple years ago, that meant that there was a ton more people that could be pre-qualified to buy a house. That means there's a lot more people out shopping, which means inventory went through the floor, prices skyrocketed as people competed to get into those houses. People were waiving home inspection contingencies, appraisal contingencies, pretty much overbidding, overpaying on that monthly payment, and losing out on a lot of deals before finding the one that they were able to finally land a deal on. So if you're someone that's waiting for interest rates to drop, expect prices, competition, and what you get for your money to change a lot. Now, the interest rate discussion always leads into something that's more of a bigger picture, is that monthly payment. Item number 4, your negotiating power has a lot to do with that. Again, the very desirable subdivisions, the places that move inventory very quickly, you're not going to see a huge deal swing in your favor as a buyer. As a seller, great for you. But there's a lot of parts of Mount Pleasant in which your negotiating power can remain high. Places that aren't in a subdivision or don't have amenities or aren't close to those good schools or to downtown Charleston, that's where your opportunity lies as a buyer. Last thing I want to talk to you about today before we start to wrap it up, item number 5, I want to give you a neighborhood reality check. Mount Pleasant is split into a lot of different micro markets and 2 big areas. On our MLS, our multiple listing service, there are 2 areas that realtors can filter by: South Mount Pleasant and North Mount Pleasant. The Isle of Palms Connector Bridge is what splits those 2 regions of Mount Pleasant into 2 different areas on the MLS. Now, South Mount Pleasant is going to garner a higher price point. It's closer to the beach, it's the historic part of Mount Pleasant, and it's closer to Charleston. North Mount Pleasant is going to garner higher prices because it's closer to the good performing schools. It's got a little more space. Prices are a little bit lower than South Mount Pleasant, but it's still an expensive place to live. Knowing both of those things, Isle of Palms is different than Sullivan's Island, which is different than Mount Pleasant, which is different than Ion, which is different than historic Mount Pleasant. There's a lot of different areas that all perform differently. So you can't blanket statement any part of Mount Pleasant or expect one part to behave like the rest. Quick question, let's take a pause. If you were gonna buy in Mount Pleasant this year, 2026, would you wait or would you buy now? Drop me a comment below. I read every single one. Comment either now or wait. Let me know what you think. This is the last thing I got for you, my final take. Buying in Mount Pleasant in 2026 is not a gamble, but the buyers that wait too long or go in without a game plan are the ones that we see losing out the most often. Now, the buyers that are winning right now in our market are decisive, strategic, and informed. So let's talk about how to put a game plan together and make Mount Pleasant buying in 2026 a reality. If you're thinking about buying in Mount Pleasant and want a strategy that's actually a winning strategy and you have a real game plan instead of just praying and hoping that you get the house of your dreams, look below for my Charleston buyer guide. Made it myself, put my headshot all over it, and put it down there for you for free. You can also check below for my booking link so you can get time in my calendar dedicated to just you, your hopes, your dreams, and what you want to accomplish here in Mount Pleasant in 2026. Follow along, subscribe, comment, like my videos. I break down what it takes to buy and sell and invest in Charleston and Mount Pleasant every single week. Until next time.